was one of my first big endeavors. I had just resigned from this Fortune 150 corporation where I was like winning all these awards. I was rated in the top 1% of the entire company. They were wanting to promote me actually. And I had this entrepreneurial call that I said I would love to be in business for myself. I just
Mm,
had this drive. I knew what I wanted to be in life at a very young age. But again, doing what I had to do to get to where I want to, where I would enjoy doing what I'm doing. But yeah, I was getting funding for an actual physical location that I was putting in. It's when I built a chain of preschool and early learning centers. Went from 2 employees to about 300. Won a bunch of awards with that, SBA awards, and I remember getting that first one, Matt, almost devastated me because no banker would look at me seriously. I had to get funding to do it. I thought I had a good idea. I wasn't for sure. I was 20 something years old, 24, 25 years old, just starting my career. I just resigned from this Fortune 150 corporation where, again, I was the guy. And to walk into banker after banker after banker's office and get rejection after rejection after rejection, when I'd come from being at the top of the mountain to the lowest guy in the valley, I'm going, don't you guys know about my past career? I mean,
right.
who you're talking to.
It almost sounds like the guy who was like the star of the high school football team, and then he goes off to college someplace where nobody knows who he is, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, hey,
exactly.
don't you know who I am? No,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. Let me tell you if you don't, which you can't. But
So you've got no previous business experience. So you haven't run a business yet, and and you're going to bankers asking for business funding, which I'm sure is challenging, right? So
I
they
know it
you
was tough.
you've got great sales experience. You're a rock star selling in a Fortune 150 company, but not running your own business, certainly not a brick and mortar business, right? So
Right, right.
this is probably where bankers are really finding it difficult to find a way to say yes, right?
Yeah, no, super difficult. And to make a very long story short, I went through about 7 bankers, and I finally went to the eighth one. And I got to a point, every rejection humiliates you more and more. And me coming from being this rock star salesperson, I'm thinking, man, can I really make it? Like, am I going to have to go begging for my job back? Like, I would have nightmares, Matt, about having to ask for my job back because I failed.
Hmm.
I'm just starting a new family. I just had my first kid. I mean, I've got responsibilities. I moved into a house, and I've got all these new things happening. And then I've got bankers saying, this is the end of the line. You can't do this. And so when I finally got to the eighth, it was the seventh or eighth banker. I think it was the eighth banker after being rejected. I finally just sat back in my seat and I said, look, I've been rejected this many times. I was very honest with him. I said, don't tell me that I can't, but show me how I can. Don't tell me that I can't, but show me how I can. He
Hmm.
said, what do you mean? I go, give me a list. It could be one thing, 5 things, 10 things, 100 things. You give me that list, and I know my work ethic. Like, I'll check every box on that list. And if I check every box on that list, I would expect you to give me the loan. And to my surprise, Matt, he goes, well, show me the property. I go, well, what do you mean? Like, do you want a picture of it? No, let's go. Let's go. Show me. He gets his coat, gets in my Jeep Grand Cherokee that I had back then, and we went to the site. I showed him. I talked to him. I said, this is what I'm planning to do. This is the need. This is went through the whole spiel. And he goes, okay, I'll have your list this week. So he gave me the list. There's 10, 12 things on the list, everything that he needed, everything that I needed to bring to him. I checked all the boxes and I presented it to him. And we were using a particular SBA loan product. And he said, okay. He said, I can get you qualified. If we go through the SBA, you'll get favorable terms, blah, blah, blah. Again, long story short, he gave me the loan, and that kicked off the starting of this company that went from 2 employees to 300. I wound up winning the SBA Entrepreneur of the Year award for 5 states in my region, coming from somebody who I could have quit on that first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh banker and saying, this is not for me. I want to take the easy road. I'm just going to get my job back. But I hung in there. There was a deeper calling inside of me than the circumstances that surrounded me. So I kind of held on to that, what I thought was my calling to be an entrepreneur, kept pushing, checked all the boxes, put in the business, put in another business, another one, another one, another one. And, again, was nominated SBA Entrepreneur of the Year, did it. And that absolutely changed the trajectory of my entire life, my sanity, my insanity, everything I was experiencing. Uh, that it was pivotal at that point in time.
Yeah. So if we could step back I think there was just this very key learning in that experience, right? Which is ironically, it's funny, it sounds like this is probably something you learned in sales, right? It's like if somebody tells you a no, you say, okay, I understand. What are your concerns? Can I hear them? And they say, yes, here are my concerns. And if you
Right.
just say, those are very valid concerns, I understand why you'd be concerned about that. Um, if I could resolve those concerns, you know, what would your thoughts be then? Was there a chance we could do business together? And if the
Yep.
person says yes, and you say, okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about these concerns and let me see if I can fix them. It sounds like you might have learned that just in sales training, right? And then applied
No,
that
you're
to receiving funding.
1,000%. But the big educational piece was when you ask those questions with a $3 billion company behind you,
Hmm.
you can deliver. When you answer those questions with nothing behind you and no assets in the bank, I couldn't deliver. I ultimately could. I found a way to do it, but
You just
going.
you didn't know that you could, right? You just
Yeah,
were,
yeah, and honest to God, Matt, like the things weren't there when I went out and asked the questions to the banker. I mean, I had to think so creatively to reframe things and look at things a little bit differently to get to where they wanted, and even ask him on a couple of those things I needed to check the box. I said, well, what if I could do this instead? Or
hmm.
what if I could do that instead? Would that satisfy at least these two categories? And fortunately, he said yes. And but yeah, it was very painful going through that process. I felt like I don't know if you've ever had the dream like you're in high school and you're running, and you can't run, and it's like you're trying to get away or you can't get to your class on time. It was like I was
Yeah.
in that constant state of stress that I just wasn't getting it done, and just praying to God that the next banker would listen to me.